Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Pressed into Purpose. I am your host, Valeria Wright. Now let's meet today's guest. Dr. LaToya L. Abrams is a native and current resident of Chicago, Illinois. Dr. Abrams attended Roosevelt University, where she received her BA in psychology and MA in clinical professional psychology. She has an MA in forensic psychology with a concentration in law enforcement from Argosy University. Dr. Abrams also received her PhD in counselor education and supervision from Alder University. She is a licensed clinical professional counselor in Illinois, a licensed mental health counselor in Indiana, and a national certified counselor. Dr. Abrams has been in the counseling field for 15 years, providing individual therapy in various settings. Dr. Abrams is currently a tenured track assistant professor at Chicago State University in the Counseling and Psychology Department. She has authored several journal articles and book chapters. She currently serves as the president of the Illinois Association for Couples and Family Counseling. She is also the CEO and founder of the Essence of Healing, LLC. Please help me welcome Dr. LaToya Abrams. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am wonderful.
Good.
So glad to have you today.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here.
I am, as I was reading through your bio and as I've gotten to know you a little bit, some of the things I was thinking, I was like, has she always, like from a child, been like a counselor or wanted to be a counselor? Because listen, you have done all the things in counseling. So I guess I'll start with the first question.
Yes.
What made you choose counseling as a profession?
You know what? I'm much backtrack because this was not in the cards for me.
Okay. This
was not something where I woke up and like, you know how kids say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. I never woke up and said I wanted to be a counselor. I wanted to be a backup dancer.
Are you serious?
I wanted to do choreography.
Okay.
I always like to dance, like to sing, do those type of things. Mm-hmm. And so as I got older, you're in high school, they're talking to you about careers and you're trying to figure out, okay, now we'll be in the backup dancer, provide.
Is it gonna pay the bills? Right.
Will this pay some rent? Things of that nature. And so I was like, I may have to switch some things. I may have to think about what I really want to do. Mm-hmm. And so I think counseling let me backtrack again. I actually majored in business.
Okay.
I do not like math. I think pretty much all the math class I touched in college,
not so great.
And I remember calling my mother and I told her, I said, if I fail this next math exam, I'm dropping this program. Then I'm going to go over to psychology.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
Wow.
And so learning about the mind, how humans work, why they engage in certain behaviors, I started to become more interested. Now, fast forward, I'm in the program and I'm like seeing things around me. Mm-hmm. And so personal history, I had an uncle, may his soul rest in peace, who suffered with schizophrenia and alcoholism.
Okay.
And then I knew people who suffer from depression and anxiety. And I'm like, what does it mean to be a person with anxiety? What does it mean to have depression? What does it mean to have a mental illness? And so that's what made me really get into the field and learn more. Okay. And specifically for Black Americans.
Okay.
Because I didn't see Black therapists. Whenever you watch TV, you would see white counselors on TV. And so I was still like, is there a space for me in the counseling field? And the more I went through school and I would do homework assignments and I'm watching videos for classes, I'm like, okay, so there are some African-American therapists out here. But I think I've always been nosy too. I'm gonna just be honest. I think I've always been nosy. And I knew how to ask the right questions to get the information that I needed.
It's important.
And so that's what kind of drove me to be a counselor, is that I've always heard people say you have the spirit of help. Like, you just like helping people. Yeah. And at first I'm like, I never really thought about it. I'm like, I just want to be here for other people. I want to be a listening ear. I never tied it to anything. I just thought I was being a good person, a good friend.
Right.
But I think it took on a life of its own where it was like, not only was I listening, but I could also provide some type of advice.
Okay.
That was helpful.
Okay. Wow. Backup dancer.
I know. My mother, when she found that out, she was like, "Ooh, I am so glad you did not tell me that." Because she said, I was not going to,
She wasn't going.
No, she wasn't going for that. No.
So you talked about going to school and then seeing some things in your family and with people around you. At what moment, and you also talked about how you changed from a business major to psychology. And so what then prompted you, because you have several degrees in psychology. So what made you pursue each one of those? And then I guess a better question is, what intrigued you about the different topics? So you got the forensics, you've got, the mental health, you've got all the things.
So again, another funny story is I never wanted to go to college.
Okay.
So it amazes people that they hear my background. They're like, oh, so you just knew you wanted to go to school. No, I never wanted to go to college. That was never my idea and or plan.
Okay.
Me and my mother had a discussion close to graduation from high school. And I said, I don't think I really want to go to college.
Okay.
And the first thing she said, well, what's your plan?
Right.
And I'm like, to be honest, I don't have one. And she said, so here, I think she reversed psychology. The first thing she said, well, let's do this. Go to school for a year. Midway point, I'm going to check in with you and see what your plan is.
Okay.
And we can revisit the conversation.
Okay.
She checked in with me. She said, so what's your plan? I said, I still don't have one.
Okay.
And as you can see, 4 degrees later, I guess I never came up with a plan because I stayed. And I think I also stayed because I started to like it.
Okay.
I started to learn different. And so when I got into the psychology field, it was interesting to learn about the brain. Like, the brain has always fascinated me. Human behavior has always fascinated me because I would see people and I'm like, what would make you engage in this behavior, whether good or bad?
Yeah.
And so learning about the brain, I'm figuring like, okay, how can I use this in the future? Knowing that in our field, it wasn't enough just to have a bachelor's degree. Like, we had to go further. I ended up doing clinical psychology because then I was like, yes, I want to be a therapist. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to go back into my community. I want to help the people who look like me to have a better outcome, a better life. Forensic, I'm going to be honest, I went back to school because I think I got bored because I never had a lapse in schooling. So it was like school all the way up until 18. And then I was just like, I don't know what to do with myself. But forensics, I was always interested in because I would watch crime shows.
Gotcha.
I was always interested, and please, people, don't think I'm strange. I was always interested in serial killers and kind of what made them tick.
Okay.
Like what... Because no one wakes up saying, hey, today is a good day to be depressed, use drugs, and or be a serial killer. And
we hope not.
We hope not, right? And so I was always intrigued by stuff like that. It scared the people in my family. And so...
I mean, I have a couple people in my family that I'm like, really? This is what you want to know about?
Yeah.
And they say the same thing. I just want to know what makes them tick. I need to know it. I don't need to know, but thank God for you.
And so I was thinking that I wanted to do like crime scene work. And then I heard what it entailed and blood and all that stuff. And I was like, maybe this is not for me. It was a good idea in the beginning. And so I kind of moved away from that. It did help me in my background because I used to work for a methadone clinic. So it kind of helped me in that space.
Wow.
And then I was like, you know what? I have master's degrees. Let's go ahead and just do the doctoral degree. At this point, my mind shifted to more of, I still want to do counseling, but I think I want to teach now.
Okay.
I want to show other people how to do what it is that I do.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of how I came to be in those different fields.
So how far along in your career were you before you said, I need to go back and get this PhD?
Ooh, I think I had been doing counseling already for almost 10 years. I started very young. I started counseling like at 23.
Wow.
23, 24. And then at that point, I was just like, I think I was over it. I was burned out.
Okay.
I don't think people really know what goes into being a therapist.
Yeah.
The mental energy that it takes, the spiritual energy that it takes,
yes,
the physical labor. And having worked in a methadone clinic for 2 years, I was wiped out. I was depleted. Hearing those stories, I was just like, I don't know if I can do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Because it was just emotionally, it was taxing.
Yeah.
It was a good experience, but it was like weighing on me. So I think at that point I was just like, you know what? I know there's other avenues in this field. I need to tap into that.
Gotcha.
And I think when I went back to school to do that, I was like, okay, I think I found where I really want to be.
So what was your PhD? It's a counselor, education, and supervision.
Yes.
What did that entail? Talk me through that.
So pretty much what that is, it is already counselors in the field, but now we're learning how to teach others to do what we do.
Okay.
So I'm teaching about micro skills. I'm teaching you how to do treatment plans in the counseling field. I'm showing you how to diagnose people in the counseling field. So, and doing research in the counseling field. So it walks you through that process.
Okay. And so now you are teaching at the college level. And what do you enjoy about teaching?
Ooh, so many things.
Okay.
I think it's really rewarding to see the students grasp the information.
Okay.
It is also rewarding for me to see them become licensed in this field. Because when they come in, they're kind of like, I don't know if this is for me. They're fresh. They're very green. Some students know some things, but they don't know the ins and out of counseling. So to see them go from deer in headlights to like, I got this. Yeah. Like I'm in internship and I have 7 clients, Dr. Abrams, and I'm doing all these amazing things. Like that really does warm my heart.
Yeah.
It really, really does.
Okay.
Yeah.
What challenges have you faced along the way? Because I know that you are an educated, talented, beautiful Black woman in America.
Yes.
And I know being a Black woman in America, that is not an easy space to be in various circles. Yeah. So what, and just in general, what challenges have you faced along the way in the field?
I think right off 2 things when I was younger, it was age.
Okay.
And then also the competency level. So people like to question your competency as a woman, as a Black woman, and then as a young Black woman. So we got the triple, the trifecta. Yes, okay. And so the challenge was, how do I find a balance in this without having that stereotypical label of being aggressive or angry.
Yes.
Because I was very passionate.
Yeah.
And I become very passionate when people want to kind of test the waters with me. If I'm going to say it really nice.
Understood.
And so when I worked in places where there may be of other people, it was a lot of learning how to stand my ground.
Yes.
Say what I need to say with firmness and assertiveness. But also trying to be authentic to myself, because I feel like I had to code switch in those settings, right? And so I'm like, I can't be LaToya. As me and my husband like to call her LaTanya. We like to give her a different name. I can't be her in these settings because people are easily offended or sensitive, and they don't know how to take that. Yeah. And so it became anxiety provoking for me, because I'm like, how do I show up today?
Yeah.
Who is the individual that's going to come in today? Is it LaToya? Is it Dr. Abrams? Like, who is the individual? And I don't think people know how mentally exhausting it is to code switch.
Oh, listen.
That is a segment all by itself.
For sure.
Yeah. You know, if you ever get some other ideas, code switch is another one. Because I don't think people really understand how taxing it is for Black women, how we have to really consciously think about showing up.
Yes, and how we show up.
And so some of the challenges, I'm a girl who likes to wear different colored braid hair in her hair. And so one day you may see me with some green and black braids, some purple and some blue. And I was like, do I cut this out now? Do I stop doing these things? Because I don't want my white counterparts to look at me like, oh, is she a professional?
Right. We can't take her seriously.
Right. And so that was another thing. And thank God for my cousins, Dr. Lockhart, Sherry, Brandy, all my good people who were like, your professionalism isn't tied to your aesthetic. You look professional. What does your hair color have to do with what comes out of your mouth? So those were some challenges. And then just finding my footing, you know, being young and when you're working with seasoned people.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest, they're not quick to help you. It's kind of like, I'm going to hold on to this information. I'll give you little tidbits.
Okay.
But then you swim. And you fish for yourself and you figure it out. And so those were kind of challenges, but thank goodness that I'm the type where, you know what, that's okay.
I'm going to figure it out.
You give me one little clue, trust me, I'll figure out the rest.
Okay.
I'm good.
I didn't think about the young part, but in thinking about you being a young counselor, I think about, because we judge people. Look, everybody judges. Yes. We all have moments when we, aren't our best selves, and we prejudge people.
Yeah.
I remember going to counseling for the first time, and I prayed, and I was like, God, I need a counselor, I need a therapist, but I need them to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And, because it's important to me that that whoever is counseling me aligns with the values that I have. And so, because I tried a therapist well, I guess it was the second time I was going to therapy. The first time I went to therapy, I went to this lady, and look, God bless her, but she was an older woman, an older white woman. And when I sat and talked with her about my issues, and I was having issues in my marriage at the time, within the first visit, she not only, she validated some things some things that I said, but then she diagnosed my husband. Ooh. And I was like, oh no. Wait now.
And he was not present.
He was not present. It was only the hour session, and I'm the person that tries to tell the whole story, So I told things that that were on my heart, that were troubling me. I shared the things that were that I had seen in him, but when she started diagnosing him, I was like, now I don't think that that's what one should do.
No.
And so when I walked out of there, I was validated but disturbed all at the same time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, well, I was like, well, God, and he was like, don't go back to her.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, that's what made me start looking for a Christian therapist. And so now I'm sitting in front of this Christian therapist, but she was younger than I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, she's younger than me. She's a white woman. How can she help me? I'm just being honest,
no,
right?
That is the sentiment.
Because you brought it up, and so I just want to talk about it.
Yes.
And so I sat there and I started sharing my story and all the things. And I shared, once again about my marriage and all the different things. She listened to me, and she said, "Can we pray?" I was shocked.
Yes,
I said. Now, mind you, I looked for a Christian therapist, but I was like, can we pray? Anybody asked me that before in therapy? And I was like, sure, kind of nervous, right? And the first thing she said was, God, you are the God of miracles. We need you to work a miracle in this situation.
Yes.
It changed my entire view of her.
Yeah.
who the person I had prejudged because she was young, because she was white, because she was, I felt like, how can she really help me? And she hasn't been doing this very long.
Right.
But she knew where her strength came from.
Exactly.
And she also had the tools because, you all go to school for years for this.
Yes.
And so I quickly changed my opinion of her, and I was able to hear and receive from her because she started and she said, "Can we pray?"
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we went on for several sessions afterwards, and it was great,
I'm glad. Here's the thing that I do want people to understand when they do see a young therapist, and I have to tell my students this because they are young adults. You're going to get that. But don't take it personal.
Yeah.
You can't take any of these things that happen in these counseling spaces personal.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you will be at home crying in a corner. Because everything is going to hurt your feelings. And I'll never forget one of my clients, and she ended up loving me, would not miss a session. And I'll never forget, I opened the door and I heard her say, the first thing she said, "And it better not be a young person either." And I opened the door and she was like, "Oh." And I told her the thing I said, "I heard what you said." I said, "I'm not offended. I understand." I said, "But I ask that you give me a chance. If it does not work for you after this first session, you have autonomy, which means you can definitely not see me again."
Yes.
We went on until I left the company. And she was devastated when I left. She was like, "Oh my God, are you leaving?" I was like, "Yes." But she was like, "I'm glad I took a chance on you."
Yeah.
She said, because this was one of the best experiences that I had with therapy. And she said, "I saw you as a kid." But she was like, "You're so wise."
Right.
You're so wise. You're full of wisdom. I'm like, "Well, thank you." I try.
See, and I think that's something that we all need to just kind of check sometimes. Because it comes from a place of ego too. It
does.
Because we're like, well, you can't possibly know what I need or know how to help me because you're young,
right?
Or you're different than me. You look different than me, and it's I've thought about it before, but I don't know that I've thought about it like this.
Yes.
I'm thinking about all the therapists and counselors that I've had. I've only had like 4 over, the past 10, 12 years or so. But oh my gosh, they've all been white. I don't think I've ever had a black therapist. But I will say that they all acknowledge in the beginning that we do have different life experiences.
Yes.
They all acknowledge that there may be some things that they might not quite understand. And if it gets to the point where, I feel like I need somebody different, they've all been like, "Hey, it's okay." Yeah. And I understand.
And I appreciate that.
Yes.
Because I think people, especially therapists in this field, especially if they're seasoned, it's almost, and I hate to say this because I'm part of the profession, but some of them feel like I still have something to prove or I'm going to show that I am the expert. And so they tend to hold on to people that they really should be letting go. That you're doing a disservice because you're trying to prove a point.
Yes.
That I have 40 years in the field and I can fix whatever this issue is. And it's like, it's okay if this does not work, if this is not a good fit. That's when we have to say, you know what, this isn't working. Yes. And Valeria, you may have to go to somebody else because I think we capped out. In this relationship. And it's hard for people to say that, especially like if this is your field and you are trained in it. It's hard for people to say, I don't think I can service this person because I don't think I have the tools for them. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not competent. Right. It's just that you don't have what's needed for this person. And it's okay.
Because counseling and therapy really is personal.
Ooh, so personal.
It is really personal. How are you able to deal with all of those heavy and personal things and not bring them home?
That took some time.
Okay.
When I was working for the methadone clinic and a place before that, it was hard. It was very, very hard. I would go home with these stories on my mind. I was dreaming about these individuals, not inappropriate, but just like, I didn't see this person today. Where were they?
Yeah.
Like, are they okay? And I did not know how to shut anything off. It got to the point where I was telling people, please do not ask me about my day because I don't want to talk about it.
Gotcha.
And my mother was like, well, I'm going to ask you about your day because you need to talk about it.
Right.
But as I got further in the field, I found a place where what happens here is going to stay here.
Right.
I would share with my partner at the time or with my mom. I was like, I'll give you guys 5 minutes of that.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I was re-traumatizing myself with the stories that I was hearing.
Gotcha.
So I had to set a boundary for myself that when I got home, I'll give you guys 5 minutes of what happened in my workday, but this is not going to be an all-day conversation because I mentally could not handle it anymore.
Gotcha.
And especially working in a methadone clinic, I mean, hearing stories of how people ended up on drugs it's not for the faint of heart. And so I was like, I'm going to hear this here, but I'm going to leave it here.
Yeah.
And I had to learn. That took time, but eventually I got it.
Okay.
I was just like, nope, not today. Not today. We are done. I even had, it was to a point I'm telling like coworkers, if you need me after hours, please call the director. Like, do not call me because I had to create a safe space for myself. Like my entire day could not be work.
Yes.
I still have a life outside of this. And I had to learn how to carve that out for myself.
Okay. Today's episode is brought to you by Destiny Film and Media. Go to destinyfam1.com for all your media needs. Destiny Film and Media, your destiny through film and media. What are some of the tools that you use to be able to carve that out for yourself?
I'm learning how to one thing one of my coworkers taught me was to be mindful of the music that I would listen to.
Okay.
I did not like my coworkers at the methadone clinic. I'm sorry, I didn't. Some of them I did. I grew to have very good relationships. But I noticed that for a place that I didn't like, I was listening to trap music at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Oh yeah, you definitely.
That was not a good idea because it set the tone for my day.
Yes.
So I'm like listening to this rah-rah aggressive music, and then I'm walking into this place at 5:30 in the morning with this aggressive rah-rah attitude. And she told me, I'll never forget, she told me, she said, you need to change what you listen to in the morning.
Yeah.
She said, I found a YouTube station that has nothing but meditation music, white noise.
Okay.
And that's what I would do.
Okay.
I would listen to meditation music, pray, because the good Lord knows that I needed it. And I was like, let me just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Even down to just deep breathing, just getting myself together. And I would do that after my clients because I'm like, this is heavy. Like you could feel it.
Yes.
And I'm just like, okay, let me take 10 minutes. Let me debrief with myself. Let me talk to God. Like, Lord, what was this? Can we talk a little bit? You know? And then I would put on my music.
Okay.
And that's what I would continue to do. Now that I have my private practice, it's a little bit better because I'm in my own home. So I have my drink my tea. You know, I could step away from my workspace, clear my mind, go for a drive, come back, see my next client. But I really and my biggest issue is consistency in things.
Okay.
I would start out, be like, okay, I feel good. And then I would just stop doing all of it. Like not listen to my stuff anymore.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm like, gotta do it again.
And you would go through the cycles.
I would go through the little hamster wheel of things. And I'm like, Toya, would you just stay consistent, please?
Yes.
And so I had to tell myself, be consistent in what you're doing. Because that was one of my biggest challenges, was just being consistent in things. And so that's what I do. If I have to, since I'm at home, read the Bible, I listen to the Bible on my phone. In between clients. Keep me some snacks. Because, you know, you got to have you some snacks.
You got to have a good snack.
Get your cold water or whatever it is that you're drinking, and then just let that be. And since my office is in my home, I had to have boundaries with that.
Yes.
I don't do work in my room.
Yes.
Because that's our private time.
Correct.
My office is for work, and I had to remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. Those are good tools. So what do you, so you are, you are still young, relatively young. Yeah. And so what do you look forward to? You've accomplished so much already. Yes. What are you looking forward to?
I think now what I'm looking forward to is facing some fears.
Okay.
So, and what that entails is learning how to be comfortable with public speaking. I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it.
Okay.
I teach people like, well, you teach. It's different because I know the bodies that sit in those seats. And I'm like, I feel like I'm a master of those topics. And I feel like I can research anything and be pretty good at it.
Yeah.
It's being in those spaces where I'm like at conferences and part of my work job is to like go out and present and do all of these things. And I was just telling my boss this, I'm like, girl, I don't know now. But that is a fear of mine that I want to conquer because I'm like, I could be out here doing TED Talks.
Absolutely.
Why not me?
Listen.
You know?
Listen, my TED Talk is on the way, okay? I am speaking it into existence.
It is coming.
Listen, we're going to back to back TED Talk on the stage.
Listen.
Let's do it,
Let's do it. Because I was like, I know I could do this. And you see certain famous people out here doing this stuff. I'm like, now, if they can do it.
Surely.
Jesus.
Yes.
Lord.
Absolutely.
I can't. But I learned in this journey, I am my biggest critic. I never needed anybody else.
Listen.
To talk me out of anything.
Who you telling?
And I would sit and have ideas, and I'm just like, before you know it, I've talked myself out of 3 things already. And my dear husband, who I love, he gives me the motivation.
Okay.
He does. He talks to me, and I'm just like, I don't think I can do this. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, why? And I'm sitting here, are you giving me therapy? Are you being my therapist now? And when he questions me, it makes me question myself, like, why? Why can't I do this? Why am I talking myself out of these things?
Yeah.
And so I'm learning how to not operate out of fear.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's when everything just tends to fall apart.
Listen.
Because your mind is not there.
Yeah.
It's already set up that this is not going to work.
Correct.
This is going to fail. Go ahead and do it because I already told you it wasn't.
People, listen, people don't always think about it, but there's not only the fear of failure, but there's also the fear of success. And for a long time, I was afraid that I would actually succeed at doing all of the things that God gave me. You know what I'm saying? And so I just wouldn't. I was like, well, what if it really works? Or what if it really does take off? Yeah. Then what? And it's like, well, great then. But in my mind, it was like, but then what? Like I can't. What? I was afraid of what would have to come next. Yes. In my head. Yes. I had all these things. Well, if this succeeds or when this succeeds, then I'm gonna have to do this. Or then if I achieve that goal, then what's left? What's left? And I don't know. It's just I have worked very hard to overcome the fear of success over these last 4 years. Even with this podcast, like in 2020, God gave this to me, and we're in 2025, and I'm just now executing. You know what I'm saying? I had to get over so many different things that I didn't like about myself, or I wasn't confident about myself, and so I say to you, like, record yourself talking. Yeah. You know, look back at it. Get accustomed to hearing your voice, because that was one of the things that I struggled with. I didn't like the sound of my voice. And it's so crazy because
your voice is very soothing.
Well, thank you. And I was like, nobody has ever told you that your voice sounds crazy. Exactly. Why is it that why don't you like your voice? You've had the same voice your entire life, and nobody has ever complained about it. Exactly. Why are you? It was craziness.
I kind of think about, and it's so crazy, me and Darian was listening to like the story of Adam and Eve and how they became embarrassed once they realized like, oh my God, we're naked and everything. It's kind of like children. We have no shame.
Right.
We have no fear.
Right.
We do all of the things, whether they fail, succeed or not. But it's like you hit that adolescent year and you recognize the shame. You recognize the embarrassment.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't want to do this. Because
what if
the people, they can see me.
Right. As if they didn't see you before.
Like, did they not see you at 12? Did they not see you at 11? But at 13 and 14 and 15, they see you.
Right.
You become very well aware of all of the things. And that's what I don't like. I was like, I like it when I was a kid. I just went out here and did random stuff. Clothes didn't match, hair all over my head. I'm out here just doing the stuff. But then you become an adult or a teenager and you're like, people are staring. People have critiques.
Yes.
Do I fit the mold? You have 1,003 questions.
Yes.
Do I look the part? Do I sound okay? Like you said, I didn't like the sound of my voice either. I'm like, this is the same voice that the Lord gave me.
And it's beautiful.
And it's beautiful. But it's like, for some reason, I don't want to see myself on camera. It's like you had the same aesthetic since you were a child. What's different today? And I think once I realized, and it's so crazy because I teach my clients how to do these things. And I'm sitting here like, I am having the hardest time trying to execute and implement for myself. And it's so crazy. Like, even with my own business, I sat on that idea since 2018.
Wow. Okay.
I had the paperwork in the system.
Really?
And I stopped. Because the first thing I said was, what if this does not work? What if I don't get clients? What about money? What about this, that, and the third? When me and my husband reconnected in 2021, and he was like, you know, you're a therapist. Have you ever thought about having your own business? I said, it's funny you say that. I said, I've been sitting on that idea since 2018. I said, my paperwork is sitting in the state system or whatever it is. And he's like, so what are you doing? I said, well, nothing. Right. I was like, I'm not doing anything. He was like, so you don't want to work for yourself? You don't want to have your own? I was like, I do want to have my own. He said, so again, what are you doing? I'm like, this man, you have not been in my life but a teaspoon of a minute. And you are like pushing me. Yeah. And when people start to push, I start becoming resistant, and it turns into irritability. Okay. Because I'm like, okay, stop pushing me. Yeah. But I know you're pushing me for the right thing. Right. I'm just uncomfortable. I like comfort. Yes. I like behind the scene things.
We all do.
When you tell me to step 2 inches to the left out of this comfort box, I'm sitting here looking at you like, okay, that's enough of being on the outside of the box. Put me back in.
Listen.
Put me back in the box. And I say, you know what? Since you are giving me the motivation, I'm going to do this. Okay. I said, I'm going to see how this goes. Yeah. Mine was already doing what it wanted to do. Okay, girl, go ahead and see if you want to. I said, okay. He helped me with the legal Zoom stuff, and he got me all of that. Yeah. But it was a sense of pride when I saw on like August 16, 2021. I remember that. Come on. Where they were like, your paperwork is in the system. You are now the Essence of Healing LLC. I cried, and I'm not a crier. I cried tears of joy because I had never in my wildest dreams, and he even said it, we've been knowing each other since we were 13. He was like, you couldn't have never told me that you were going to be a doctor. Wow. He said, because I saw how you acted in high school. I was like, yeah, Toya did the bare minimum. As long as I passed, I'm good. Smart kid. I just didn't feel the need to apply myself. Yeah. But he was like, I wouldn't have never guessed this. Wow. And he was like, this is amazing. I'm like, I'm scared, but I'm like happy. Yes. And then I stopped using the word scared and started saying nervous. Okay. Because I feel like those are two different emotions. Like nervousness, I'll still do it. I'm just nervous. Right. But it's pushing me. Yes. Because I'm like, the nerves they're pushing me. When I'm scared, I become stagnant and I don't do anything. Okay. And so I started changing my vocabulary around that. And I'm like, I've been in business 3 years.
Come on.
Yeah. And my cousin, she works with me. So me and her are doing the thing. But I was like, I wouldn't have never Yes, that I would have my own business, and my mom and my dad loves to brag on that.
I bet, because they should be peacock proud, as my dad would say.
I just never. That was just never the vision. I don't know if I really had a concrete vision for myself, because I just never thought about things. I was just the kid who was like, okay, I'll do something. If it don't work, we're gonna move on to the next.
Right.
But I was very proud, and I thanked God every day, because I was like, what about money? I paid for my business out of pocket.
Come on.
People are like, what? Because the money fell in my lap. And I was just like, come on.
I am a firm believer, whenever you begin to walk and do what you're supposed to be doing, what God has laid on your heart to do, then he is going to work everything out. And our pastor says, God always gives provision for his vision. Yes. And so you stepped out on the business because it had been on your heart for a very long time. Yes. And so it was obviously something that God had for you to do, and you've been successful in it. Yes. And, I stepped out on finally saying, okay, I'm going to do this podcast. And when everything lined up the way that it was supposed to line up, and it has been, dare I say, easy. Yes. Yes. I struggled for so many years fighting against it. Yeah. Fighting against my own progress. Fighting against my own blessing that I was praying for. Because, so the Bible also says that God gives us witty ideas and inventions, right? And so he gives us these things, and then we're scared, so that we don't do it. Exactly. And then we get frustrated and irritated and upset when things aren't going the way that we think that they should be going, and we're not seeing the results that we think we should see, when if we just go back to do what he said to do in the first place. Exactly. Look at how things work out. And stop working on your own timing. That's one of my biggest issues. I am very much so an instant gratification type person. Okay. I need this to happen today. If I lay out this plan in the morning, I need to see the fruit of this plan. Tonight. And I think, God told me one day, baby girl, that is not how this works. And I know I was the type where I would pray for things, but I was still doing stuff. I wasn't the type to pray, sit back, relax, wait, let God do his thing. Yeah. I'm like, I think God need a little assistance. Let me, and he does not need my help. Listen, and it's one thing for faith without works. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Faith without works is dead. So you do have to have some action. Put your faith to action. However, there are other things that we're just doing busy work. Yeah. And they have nothing to do with nothing. Wasting time and energy. And you're just like, and my mother, my grandmother, everybody, if you're going to pray about it, you shouldn't worry about it. Yes. So they would tell me, if you're going to worry, then you need not pray, because that means you're not trusting in what he's capable of doing. Yes. So I was like, you guys are absolutely right. And so I had to learn that the hard way. It came to me. So now I pray, and I'm like, it's from my mind. I'm going to just let that be. Yeah. But that took some time, because I operate sometime out of anxiousness. And that's when a lot of things can fall apart. Exactly. Because I'm like, okay, I prayed now. What we doing? I'm shaking, I'm walking around, and I'm like, no, you got to learn how to sometimes just sit. Yes. Be still. And be quiet. Exactly. My therapist told me that. She said, sometimes you just need to sit and be quiet. And I looked at her and said, girl, for how long? Is there a time limit on this? She was like, try for a minute. I tried it, and I was like, I don't know. This is a lot, but you learn a lot about yourself when you quiet the noise. Yes. I didn't know how to quiet the noise. And now that I do know how to quiet the noise, I hear better. I see things better. And I'm like, okay, this is how I need to be moving. Yeah, yeah. I was leaning a lot on my own understanding, which we know. We should not be doing that. We should not. But in all our ways, acknowledge him, God, and he shall direct our path. That's what it says. And that's where I came to, like, you know what? If I'm going to pray about it, I'm not going to worry about this thing. I was like,
however the Lord see fit to grow this business, that's just how it's going to be. And it's been doing well.
Yeah.
You know, it works for me because I do have a full-time job, so I don't take on too many clients.
Okay.
But it works.
Yeah.
It works, and I can still do what I love to do, but at my own leisure.
Gotcha.
It was different when you're working for a company and it's, you got to see these many clients, you got to do this and you got to do that. It takes the passion away.
Okay.
Because I felt like it was more corporate goal driven than I want you to really sit down and help this individual.
Yeah.
Because there was a goal tied to it. Now, me doing my own thing, it's like I can really help the people how I need to help the people.
Can be people focused and not
exactly
profit focused.
Exactly. So that's why I'm just like, I love my business. I do. I love it. I love it.
I love this for you.
Thank you.
So as we wrap up the conversation, if you were to give, and I know you have students, so maybe it's advice that you give your students, but what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about going into the psychology field or the counseling field? What advice would you give them?
The first thing I would say is definitely have a passion for it. Do not make money the focus because it's not always there. Right. And I want people to know that because when we think of therapy and counseling, we have a Hollywood sensationalized opinion about therapy. When I started out, I tell people all the time, I worked at some janky places. I didn't get my first paycheck or my last paycheck from one company. Oh, honey. Rough time.
Oh, that's a whole mess.
A whole flaming mess. Have a passion for it.
Yeah.
And I say a passion because you are sitting in front of people who had enough courage to come in and say, I'm going to sit in front of a stranger and share my deep-seated issues with this individual in hopes that this person will not judge me and can assist me in growing from this place.
Yeah.
I would also tell them to set boundaries. This field takes a lot out of you. And I don't say that to scare people, but it does. You have to have boundaries. They're for other people, but they're for yourself too.
Absolutely.
So learning how to set healthy boundaries. And just love what you do. Have a zeal to help people. If you know that helping people is not what you like to do, I do not advise you to be in this profession. If you're coming here for the money, I'd advise you to go somewhere else. To find something where I knew probably from a young age that I wanted to help people. I just did not know in what capacity that I wanted to help people. After having personal interactions with people who experience mental health issues, I was like, I think this is where I needed to be because now I'm seeing more Black and brown people having mental health issues and not receiving the services that they need. And me, myself, having my own struggles with anxiety. And then also having, some physical health challenges. I don't know if you know, I have multiple sclerosis. Well, they gave me. They want to say that.
Got you. I did not know that. I was not aware.
And so that was a challenge at school because it happened while I was in my doctoral program.
Wow.
And so losing the ability to sometimes walk, hold a pen, to talk. When it first happened, I thought I was having a stroke.
Wow.
It was crazy. I fell down a flight of stairs because I lost all sensation.
Oh, Jesus.
On my right side. And so seeing people, and I always say people with because it's person-centered language. You're not a schizophrenic. You're not depressed. You are a person who experiences these things.
Okay.
And so I want people to learn how to see themselves outside of what people like to label you.
Yes.
You're still a person.
Yes.
And so having my own challenges with some things made me view counseling in a different way because we treat people who struggle with mental health issues or physical disabilities, we treat them different. We marginalize them.
That is true.
And at some point I was one of those people.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what that's like. I'm like, oh, they're different. Like, what's wrong with them? It took for me to see my own personal stuff, family members to be like, I need to have a different outlook on people. So I would definitely encourage to please just have a passion for it.
Okay.
Really just love what you do. set boundaries, and continue to grow in this field. Our field changes 5 to 10 years. There's always some new information.
Okay.
Stay on top of what's happening in this counseling field so that you can better serve your community.
Yes.
And lastly, know the people that you serve. Nothing irks me more than outsiders coming into the community and you do not know the people that you serve. You don't know the neighborhood that you're in. I always tell my students, when you go into these people's neighborhoods, you're a guest.
Yes.
Which means I need to know what's in your neighborhood. So if you come in and you're telling me I have 2 kids, I don't have food at home, I need to know where the nearest food pantry is for you.
Gotcha.
I need to know where your kids can go and get their shots for free. I need to know where the nearest place to get coats if it's cold outside.
Okay.
Know the individuals that you're serving. People come in and they're just like, oh, I'm just here because I'm here, I need the credits for class, or I'm trying to satisfy some loan. They said if I come into the inner city, this is, no.
Okay.
That's not enough. I need you to know who you're serving.
Yeah.
Because that's important to me.
It absolutely is, because you can do people more of a disservice when you don't take time to learn.
Yeah. So just be open and just have a willingness to learn from your client.
Okay. I appreciate you. I thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. And I just want, do you have a website?
I do. So it's essenceofhealingllc.com. You can see all the information, the services that we provide, bios of myself and my cousin. You can get it all there. I write blogs. Sometimes I've been lacking on that, but yeah.
Okay. Yes. So essenceofhealingllc.com.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Abrams, once again. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We will catch you next time on Pressed into Purpose. Today's episode is brought to you by Destiny Film and Media. Go to destinyfam1.com for all your media needs. Destiny Film and Media, your destiny through film and media.